Our long national nightmare is over. Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz will participate in their first sit-down interview. CNN's Dana Bash will conduct the interview tomorrow afternoon, which is set to air on that network at 9 p.m. Eastern. This will mark the first in-depth interview for Harris since Biden dropped out of the race and endorsed her last month. So, Michael, jokes aside, I mean, there are plenty of voters who don't care about interviews and say that's silly, that's a media creation. Others say, look, it's the job of a president and a presidential candidate to be able to answer tough, sharp questions. And certainly in terms of the politics of this, Harris at some point had to do it. I wonder, though, there's going to be a lot of eyes on this tomorrow night. I mean, she'll have a running mate there as well. That I would have suggested, if I were running that campain, this should be one of a series of interviews she does. And I don't say that just as a member of the media, because we obviously want that access. We want that transparency. That's important to our democracy. But also, that also takes away, that spreads around the pressure. Like right now, if she's just doing this one, at least this one for the time being, if she does have a stumble, it's going to be really highlighted.
I mean, it's a ton of anticipation, right? It's sort of ginning up this anticipation for this interview. A lot of eyeballs are going to be on it. A lot of folks are going to have high expectations. So it's a curious strategy, especially, let's caveat this with some of the context. There was that interview that Kamala Harris did back in 2021 with NBC's Lester Holt that sort of went in some not so great directions for at some points. There were contentious discourse about the situation at the border, questions about whether or not she had visited the border. So that interview drew some negative headlines for her. So she does have this sort of checkered history with these media interviews. So it's curious that they would put essentially all their eggs in one basket and have her sit for this high stakes interview. Now it is a joint interview with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, so that could potentially focus more on their relationship, more of an introductory thing. But I think that there's going to be a lot of importance in this interview. One thing, when you talk about if voters are interested or not, Kamala Harris has changed her views on a number of key topics, one of them being fracking since taking the nomination. She's very likely going to get questions on that, and I think that's something that voters would want to listen to as they're still learning about Kamala Harris, the nominee, even though they know Kamala Harris, the vice president.
Yeah, and it's certainly customary for a running mate to join a presidential candidate for a joint interview soon after add to the ticket. And we shouldn't overstate the importance of just one interview. That said, it will matter if, for no other reason, this allows the Democrats to do away with the Republican talking point that Harris was afraid to do interviews. Right. She will do one tomorrow.
I think it's incredibly weak sauce to show up with your running mate. The fact that they don't have enough confidence in her to let her sit herself, the actual top of the ticket, and do a single interview. In fact, I think the hand-wringing and the gyrations over this over the last month show a troubling lack of confidence in her political ability, which also makes you wonder as a voter, well, what kind of president would you be if this kind of a small-time decision, can we do an interview or not, what does that look like for your decision-making process, so on? So, I think Republicans are going to think it's pretty weak to show up with effectively someone to take up half the time.
Megyn, 5 days since the empty pantsuit, rather than Obama in a pantsuit, was out, telling us not very much and hope and joy and all that crap, yet nowhere to be seen. Nothing. And as you reported yesterday, as NBC's been backing in today, if she does an interview, she'll do it with her governor. If the debate happens, she'll do it with notes. Now, this is not the behaviour of a person who is leading. This is the stuff of somebody who is scared.
Nor is it the behaviour of anyone with any intellectual depth. That's the truth. That's really what's at issue here. She is not a very smart person. She can say enough to get through a short exchange or memorize note cards for a debate, but she does not have any intellectual depth. And that, I think, is what we've been perceiving for the last 4 years when she tries to offer her brand of profundity, where none of us feel moved at all. We're actually scratching our heads, asking ourselves, what did she just say? Why would she say that? And why would she think that that would resonate with any of us? So she understands she needs a crutch, whether it's going to be her emotional support governor in an interview or her note cards in a debate. She can't perform alone, and she has enough history behind her to know that.
This is the kind of thing that is playing out all over conservative media. I just want to do a little bit of record correcting. There's not record crime right now. Number one, Harris was put in charge, as you said earlier, of combating the roots of immigration. She was not and is not the border czar.
We have Joe Biden bragging on tape in January 2018, Dana, saying, and I said I'd be on the ground 90 more minutes, and if you don't believe me, call Barack.
Okay. There's no evidence. For the record, there is no evidence that Joe or Hunter Biden did anything wrong.
Let's move